companies at the cutting edge of technology have disrupted many industries and have encountered resistance. GCs in such a disruptive world have to be agents of change. Please welcome Matt Wilson from Uber, the GC of one of the most innovative and disruptive companies of our times. Hi, Matt. You work in such a fast-paced, disruptive and dynamic organization. So how do you look up and identify the future needs of your business and how to deal with them?
Hi, Julia. Great to be here. It's a continuing conversation internally, and that goes from making sure that we're really close to the business, and that means all of our business stakeholders in Europe, Middle East and Africa, as well as our stakeholders in San Francisco, making sure that everyone in the business understands the conditions that we need to succeed as a company, especially from a regulatory point of view. So that's the internal elements. And it's a constant task externally. There's a variety of factors that can influence our business in a material way, from politics, economics, public opinion, regulation, all of those things that we need to be really mindful of and watch for, and make sure that we're doing what we can proactively to try and get ahead of them.
So you mentioned internally the challenges. To what extent do you spend time managing your stakeholders internally, and especially in light of the fact that, of course, business wants to drive revenue?
I think it's a constant challenge for everyone in the legal team. So, for example, on a given weekend, we might want to try and increase our trip numbers or increase revenue. And there are various levers we can use to do that. But before we decide to implement one of those levers or to pull one of them, it's really important to have a conversation internally. And this is where I think that the legal team can play a vital role in making sure that the short-term decisions that we might make don't harm us in the longer term and harm the sentiment of our users, whether that's riders, drivers, couriers, restaurants or eaters. Harm their sentiment towards us as a company in the longer term, which can be obviously more damaging. And one of the ways we look at that is looking at one-way doors and two-way doors. One-way doors being those decisions that you take that you can't easily reverse, and a two-way door being one that once you go through, there is a more straightforward way of coming back and reversing that decision if it doesn't work out the way you'd hoped.
If we look at your team specifically, how do you resource your team to meet the expectations from the business internationally? I imagine they just keep coming in from all sides all the time.
Absolutely. So it starts with people. And then you mentioned internationally, Julia. It's really important that we are constantly reassessing how the business is doing in the different places where we operate, and ensuring that we're going to have resource there on the ground when it's needed. So, for example, a couple of years ago, our Nordics business was doing very well. We started to change some of the regulations, and so we could see that it was going to be sustainable for the immediate future. And at that point, we took the decision to go and recruit a lawyer based in Stockholm in the Nordics, and it's worked out really well. We then do a lot in terms of learning and development. Uber is an environment that moves very quickly. So we bring in external providers to make sure that everyone in the team is able to manage their stress levels, for example, and be very conscious of when they're pushing into a red zone, and giving them the tools that they need to move very quickly back into a more productive kind of green zone in terms of stress.
You mentioned green zone, red zone. Tech innovation is not going to go away. So what would you say do you, as a resilient GC business leader, need to bring to your company to just help support and sustain the growth?
I think courage. Innovative companies don't get everything right all of the time, and Uber is certainly no exception to that. And if I think back over the last 12 to 18 months, certainly since Dara has come in as CEO, the way in which we've managed to take maybe some of the old practices of rubbing up against cities and change that to working with cities, resulting in meaningful regulatory change for the better in places across the region has really been fantastic. So in places like Egypt, Abu Dhabi, Jordan, Croatia, Finland and Portugal, we've managed to partner with regulators, governments, cities, to make sure that we're changing regulations for the better, not just for Uber, but for the economy and society in general.
What are you personally, as GC, most excited about in the years coming?
So when I think about all the things that the company has in front of it over the next 3, 5, 10 years, whether it's continuing to grow rides and Uber Eats, whether it's launching electric bikes and scooters with Jump, potentially bringing something like Uber Freight, which is very successful in the US, into our region, or even looking further down the road with autonomous vehicles and the innovations that Uber Elevate and flying taxis might bring in the future. I just feel very lucky to be in the role that I am, and very optimistic about the future.
Well, Matt, that sounds great, and I couldn't agree more. It sounds like we're heading into very exciting times, and thank you for taking the time to share your insights with us.
Thanks very much, Julia.